La Guillotine.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. I've got one here from Belgium today, and it is La Guillotine from, I don't know how to pronounce this, I'm going to make myself look like a twat, but it's Brewery Huyghe. That's the only way I can pronounce it. It's probably wrong. It's probably got a load of from the Flemish language in it, but it's the same people that brew the Delirium beers. Now, if you've never heard of the Delirium beers, you've got Delirium Tremens, which is probably the most well-known of them beers, but they do a Nocturne and they do a Christmas beer as well. But they're significant because they have the pink elephant trademark on them. I've reviewed them on the channel if you want to check out the reviews. I love the name Delirium Tremens because, of course, Delirium Tremens is it's like a disease you get from alcoholism. It basically means you're hallucinating, hence the reason they've got the pink elephants on there. I'm not sure that was very well thought out. I'm sure if they tried that today, there would be so many fucking government officials moaning about it, saying you're promoting irresponsible drinking and all that. It's like, oh, fuck off. What's the point in fucking brewing if you're not going to drink it? Anyway, rant over. Now, this stuff is interesting. It's interesting to me because they're a brewery from East Flanders, but they've called it La Guillotine, which of course is French, made synonymous during the French Revolution. That was a way of dispatching royalty and the rich, and they've chosen to use that name. Now, it's a triple. They've called it a blonde though. Well, they've called it a golden blonde, but this is 8.5%. In my eyes, that's a triple. It's gone through a triple fermentation as well, so everything points to it being a triple apart from the label on the beer. Now, just a quick word about this brewery. They've been going, well, I say only been going, they've been going in their current form since 1906 when Leon, however it's pronounced, I'm not going to pronounce it because I'm going to sound like a twat. Not that I don't sound like a twat already, but there you go. He purchased this brewery that had been there since the 1654. It had been there since there was a brewery on that site. He purchased it in 1906, changed the name, give it that name, and he's been brewing beer there ever since. And they're quite big. They own a couple of other breweries as well. They've taken them over, if you like. So they're I don't know. This seems to be quite common in Belgium, and I have read stories about, you know, when brewers undergo financial hardships, other brewers will chip in and help them, which I think is brilliant. I'm not sure how prevalent that is now, but I know that it actually happened in the 1980s when Peter Kellis, when his brewery burnt down, the Hoegaarden brewery. A lot of the other breweries, they all lent him equipment and gave him money, which I think is brilliant. That's the way it should be. But, you know, nowadays, these big brewers like AB InBev just cannot wait to see a brewer go through a bit of a hard time, and they will just jump in and buy them up, and the rest is history. Anyway, let's not get into the politics of beer. Let's get this beer investigated. Right, as I just said, it's 8.5%. It's a 330ml bottle. It says that it's gone through a triple fermentation. So blondes, which are known as singles, it's all to do with the ABV. So your blondes will be at the bottom of the scale. They're known as singles. Not too many people call them singles, but that's what the classification is. Your doubles, of course, are anything between sort of 5.5% upwards to sort of 7.5%, possibly more. Then crossing over from 7.5, anything up to 9, possibly even 9.5. They're your triples, and then anything over that is a quadruple. So that's the sort of the sliding scale of Belgian beer, the classification of Belgian beer, I should say. So with that in mind, let's get this beer opened up. Right, I do like the cap on this. I'll show you this in a sec. It's just a guillotine, which is quite interesting. Can you see that? There you go, Lois. One for the collection. Get that in there. Here's the label on the bottle. Very similar to the cap. La Guillotine. Now, I've got one of these glasses. This looks really dirty actually, and after just putting up a video on glassware and the importance of hygiene, I'm going to drink it out of this. Do as I say, kids, not as I do. Even set the dogs off drinking out of dirty glasses. They're idiots. Fucking probably barking at another dog who would probably tear them limb from limb. All mouth, no trousers. Anyway, let's get this into the glass. And straight away, two things I noticed. This is full of carbonation, which I would have expected, and this glass is pretty dirty. What are we getting on the nose? I'll tell you what I'm getting on the ears. I'm getting a mouthy little pug whose arsehole, when he barks, his arsehole is like an octopus mouth. It does smell quite nice actually. There's a lot of fruit on that. I'm getting some clove, a little bit of banana, quite nice malt as well. Now, I should have pointed out in the last section that there's 3 different types of hops in this. You've got Sart's hops, which of course is a noble hop, very earthy and spicy. You've got Brewer's Gold, which is the bittering hop, and depending on the temperature, that will also give you some nice flavours. So it depends what part of the boil you put it in. I'm assuming they've put this in for the bittering rather than it does have some black currant. People say, you know, there's that type of flavour, some fruity notes and some spicy notes to it as well. And then you've got Amarillo in there as well, which of course is citrusy and quite florally. Now, I'll tell you what I am getting from this. I'm getting some of that Sart's earthiness, probably coming from the Amarillo, probably coming from the Brewer's Gold as well, which has got some earth on it too. But that's quite nice. It's unusual to get the hop character coming through so much in a Belgian beer like this. Yeah, and there's some of that candy sugar. I'm getting a little hint of sweetness and a little touch of spice on there as well. Little coriander. Typically Belgian. Looks very nice in the glass too. That's quite clear. Now, I think there's a little dreg left in it. I'm going to get it all in there because I don't want to miss out if there's any sediment that's got to go in there. Yeah, there's a little bit. It's gone a little bit cloudier now, so there obviously was some sediment in there. Notice the carbonation on that. That is quite normal. You've got 2.5 finger, foamy, white head, golden colour on there. Very, very light amber, or golden. It really does smell nice. Let's get it down my Gregory Peck. Bottoms up. Whoa. God. Ethanol. That is the first thing. Not much sweetness. I thought there'd be more sweetness in this, but that doesn't really come through. What I like about this, there's quite a lot of malt character on this, and there's quite a bit of hop character too. But of course there is the spice, the yeasty esters and the phenols that come from the yeast, and it's not bad. It's got a bitter finish. a bitter, dry finish, which I'm assuming is coming from them hops. It sort of puts me in mind of a Pilsner dryness and spiciness on the finish. There's like pepper, black pepper. There's earthy notes to it as well, but there is a lot of what I perceive as the typical Belgian yeasty esters and phenols like clove. Maybe a little touch of fruit on there, a little touch of banana. There's some, I think it's coriander, but there's some like herbal type notes to it as well. The combination of the ethanol and the clove gives it that real, I like to call it a medicinal type taste, which really isn't to everybody's taste. You know, your people who like the lagers, the clean drinking beers, they're not going to like this because there's just so much complex flavours in it that, you know, and it's not meant to be chugged either. So this is not how them sort of people are, and I'm not looking down on them either, because I love, you know, chugging style lagers and stuff like that. But this stuff, you know, even the glassware just dictates that it's not a real chugger, if you know what I mean. And at 8.5%, you've got to take it easy. And it does come through. That 8.5% does come through in this. The ethanol is quite strong. Usually there's some candy sugar that sweetens it all out. Not really getting that in here. It's quite bitter, and there's a dry, bitter finish on it as well. On the aroma, I was getting that candy sugar, which has been added to it, but it looks like all the yeast that's been put in it has just devoured that candy sugar and turned all that sugar into alcohol, and that really does come through on the flavour. Carbonation is okay. You can feel it in the mouth, but it's not too obtrusive. It does move the flavour around, and it obviously promotes the aroma from the glass. But overall, I'd say this wasn't your run of the mill. It's quite bitter and dry. That's what I'm getting from there, from the hops that have been put in here to that big ethanol backbone that runs all the way through it. It's just a constant bitterness that I quite like. Some people may not like. If you're used to your Belgian doubles with the candy sugar just evening out that bitterness, that's quite weak. It does dominate on this, and it's different, I will say that. I quite like it. It's not too bad. So what's the verdict on La Guillotine? Yeah, it's nice, and it's one of them triples that is on the bitter end of the scale. Now, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of candy sugar being put into triples and doubles as well, which gives it a sweetness. This, although it does have a slight sweetness to it, this is far more on the bitter end of the scale when it comes to Belgian beer. The finish is very dry. I think it's the Sarts hops that are coming through on that. They're giving it a nice, spicy, earthy bitterness right at the death, which is dry, and it cuts that aftertaste off. Normally with other triples, you've got the candy sugar, and that's leaving an aftertaste in the mouth. With this, it's quite clean and dry, and it's short-lived. But it's quite nice, and it's different as well. And I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Now, that may sound a little bit harsh, but I must say I do prefer my triples a little bit sweeter. Don't get me wrong, this is a nice change, and I'm going to savour that, and I'm going to enjoy it. I don't think I could drink too much of it. It would just get a little bit too much for me. That bitterness on the end, coupled with that high ethanol or spirit alcohol backbone in there. But it's quite nice. If you like your triples not too sweet and with plenty of spirit alcohol, this is going to be a great one for you. If you prefer them sweet, or if you're used to having sweet triples and doubles, this will be a nice change just for once, just to have, you know, one at the bitter end of the scale, you know, with the alcohol really does shine through, and the herbal notes from the hops really do shine through on the finish as well. But it's quite nice. I do like that. That is a good one. So I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I'm going to recommend it. And as always, beer is working class champagne.